Welcome to class B. Let us discuss something about postal department. Nowadays, we know that the postal department people have no work to do. Why? Because the invention of your mobiles, the networks and various other technology, improvement in the technology has reduced the work of postal department. Right? Why am I talking about postal department? What is the job of the department people in the postal office? Now, why is that? What is that we are going to discuss? Let us see the work, how actually the people in the postal department work. We know that in olden days, the communication was only through method of writing letters, right? And what does these people used to do? They used to collect all the letters from the post box, various post box, and then they sort it out, right? They have to sort it out in based on the different places or districts or villages, and then make a bundle of it, and then they used to transport it through means of road, right? Means of road, that is through roadways. They used to transport it to different parts of the city or the town or the village, whatever. And then there a person in the postal office called postman used to deliver the letters, right? Now, why am I talking about this postal story? Who the hell knows, who the hell wants to hear all these things, right? You may feel, right? But the thing is, we know that there is a person who drives all this information to the different places so that the message is conveyed. But why am I talking about all this? We know that human beings or all living organisms, they need food, water and oxygen for survival, right? If we know that food is prepared in the small intestine, right? Oxygen is taken up by the lungs, right? And the same way, water is present all over the body. Now, what is the need? Like why should I talk about that food, water and oxygen are needed, right? We know that the food is prepared in the small intestine. If the food remains in the small intestine itself, will there be a growth in the body? Do you think the body helps in the body undergoes a proper metabolic functioning? I don't think so. So what is to be done? This food which is prepared in the small intestine, at the same time the oxygen which is given out, or oxygen which is present in the lungs, to be driven to all the parts. See, if you remember the previous chapter, we have studied that during the process of respiration the energy is released. How is the energy released? The energy is released by breaking the food particles, in the cell, so that energy is released, that too in presence of oxygen, right? So who is helping us to carry this food to different parts of the body? We know that food is absorbed in the small intestine. So which is the thing which is helping to carry the food? That means there should be some postman in our body who is working to carry this food and oxygen to different parts of the body, right? So unless until each and every cell gets energized, or each and every cell will take up this food and oxygen, they cannot perform their activities. So there is a postman in our body, right? Or you can say there is a driver in our body who is carrying the energy in the form of oxygen and food to the different parts of the body, say like cells or tissues. Now, who is that? Who is that driver, or who is the postman who is carrying all this? Yes, the postman who is carrying all this to different parts of the body is, when you talk about this carrying part, that means you are helping the person. There is a particular thing which is helping in transportation, right? That means the food which is prepared in your small intestine is driven up, or you can say that it has been transported to different parts of the body. So what is that you are going to learn in this class? This class we are going to learn about transportation in animals and plants. So as I've told you, the food which is prepared in the small intestine, or the oxygen which is present in the lungs, should be transported to different parts of the body so that we obtain energy, or every living organism can obtain energy. So there should be some means, or some driver, or someone, or a postman in our body who has to carry this. Say like your food is a postcard, and this postcard has to be delivered to every cell in the body so that you get energized. So who is the postman which is carrying the food or the oxygen to different parts of the body? Right, your imagination is right, it is blood. We know that we are going to speak about the blood and how the blood helps in transport system. See, as I've told you, there is a postman in our body who is carrying the food and the oxygen to different parts of the body, say like blood. Is it only blood? What is that? Which is the part which is helping us to pump the blood? That is heart. We know that blood is pumped. Heart pumps blood, right? And they have heart and blood vessels. There are blood vessels which are present, which will carry blood to different parts of the body. So this heart and blood vessels together, they form a system in our body like called as circulatory system or transport system. Heart plus blood vessels together, what do they form? They form circulatory system. They form circulatory system in the body. So when you are talking about this blood, from where is the blood being produced? The blood is pumped out from the heart, where the blood vessels which are present, they carry the blood to different parts of the body. So this heart and blood vessels together, they form or constitute a system called as a circulatory system. And this circulatory system will help in transportation of the food and oxygen to different parts of the body in a living organism. It is not only in living like human beings, even plants also prepare the food, and the undigested food they also send it to different parts of the plant body through which they have to be removed. Now when we start with the circulatory system of human beings, let us talk about the first component, the most important component which will help in transportation. Say like this blood is said to be the postman, or it can be called as a driver, which will drive up the digested food particles along with oxygen to different parts of the body. You can say that each and every cell of the body, so that energy can be obtained. Now let us talk about the blood in detail. The blood in detail. So what happens? What happens when you have a cut? See, sometimes when you try to go help your mother in the kitchen. Obviously, we know that nowadays no one knows how to cut or how to hold a knife to cut vegetables, right? Because you're so pampered at home that your mother don't let you to come into the kitchen, right? Of course, I don't. So you don't know how to hold it, and sometimes by mistakenly you may cut or chop your finger. So when you chop your finger, what comes out of your body? Is that apple juice or a pomegranate juice or something else? Right? It is blood. It is blood. You see a red fluid flowing out of your cut, which is said to be blood. And this blood which is present, it is said to be a fluid connective tissue. Right? I'll tell you why it is called as fluid connective tissue, which helps in transportation of food and oxygen. Now, as I've told you, this blood is one of the important driver in our body, which is working as which works for our circulatory system or transport system. Let me pronounce it as transport system, which sounds good. So this transport system in our body is mainly based on a component called blood. Right? This blood is said to be a fluid connective tissue which helps in transportation of food and oxygen. So why is this called as fluid connective tissue? Because the blood is in the state of a liquid, right? We know that blood is in the state of liquid. Is that the blood in the form of a solid? When you cut yourself or when you have a wound, does any solid form comes out of your body? No, it is the blood which is only in the form of liquid comes out, right? And as this connects each and every cell in the body, right, and as it also helps in carrying or transporting the substances which are needed for the cell to perform its activities, it is said to be a fluid connective tissue. So this fluid connective tissue which helps in transportation of food and oxygen. Now let me tell you, how is this food being taken up? The food which is absorbed in the small intestine is taken up by blood, okay, through blood vessels. In the same way, we know that oxygen is present in lungs. So this lungs will help in giving the oxygen to the blood. That means the blood vessels which are present in the blood, there are thin, minute, small vessels which are very small. You can say microscopic. Okay, and these microscopic blood vessels which are present, the oxygen directly diffuses from the lungs into the blood. In the same way, the small intestine will directly release the digested food into the blood. So this is how the blood will take up the digested food particles along with the oxygen to each and every part of the body, that is each and every cell in the body, so that they can carry out their activities. Now, when we are talking so much about the blood, let us know what are the components which are present in the blood and why the blood is red in color. Let us talk about the various components of the blood. So as I've told you, this blood is said to be a fluid or a liquid tissue, right? A liquid connective tissue or a fluid connective tissue. The blood has different components which are present in its body. Say, first thing, let me talk about the fluid part which is present in the blood. Okay, have you ever gone to a pathology lab? What do you mean by pathology lab? See, when you have viral fevers, usually when you go to doctor, he'll recommend for a blood test. He'll recommend you for a blood test, right? Where do you get your blood test done? In the pathology lab of hospital, right? So when you go to your pathology lab, a person will be ready with a syringe to suck out your blood, right? Just like a leech. So what does he do? He'll put in the syringe and he'll try to take out the blood. And when you take this blood sample and leave it, take a small amount of blood sample into your test tube. Okay, small amount of blood sample into the test tube and leave it for a while. You see that after a while, the blood gets clotted. And above this clot, you find a clear liquid. Okay, when you take a sample of the blood inside this test tube, okay, assume that this is blood. Okay, when it's get clotted, after the clot is done, you see that there is a liquid which is a clear liquid which floats on the surface of the clot. That is nothing but the liquid part of the blood which is said to be plasma. Not your plasma TVs, okay, it is the fluid part of the blood which is said to be plasma. So this is one of the important component of the blood which will help in transportation of minerals and salts in the body, right? Now let us view the most important components of the blood, or let us learn about the various other important components of the blood. Now, as I've told you, we know that you might have seen blood many a times right from your childhood, right? You all might have observed that blood is red in color. Now, why is blood red in color? Yes, there is one general question, because we say that the blood is red in color because there are red blood cells. When we talk about other components of the blood, first let us discuss about red blood cell. As I've told you, you might have seen blood many times. So we know that the blood is red in color because it has cells called red blood cells. Now I have a question. Why are the cells red in color, or why is the blood red in color? Because it has a pigment called hemoglobin. So this hemoglobin pigment which is present, it is a red pigment due to which you can see that the red blood cells are red in color. So what does this red blood hemoglobin do? Imagine, I've told you that this blood will act as a driver to carry the digested food and oxygen. What if this hemoglobin is not present? This hemoglobin plays a major role in transportation of food and oxygen to different parts of the body, say like every cell. Imagine it would have been very difficult without hemoglobin for the blood to transport the substances to different parts of the body. See, like digested food from the small intestine would not have been absorbed and would not have been sent to different parts. In the same way, the oxygen from the lungs would not have been taken up by the red blood cells and would not have been sent to the different parts of the body. What if they have not been absorbed? What if they have not been sent? Obviously, if they have not absorbed and if they are not sent, every cell would lack energy, and as a result, whole of your body would feel weak because there is no energy which has been released by the cells to carry out your daily activities. So, as I've told you, this hemoglobin plays a very vital role in transportation of digested food and water. So, the presence of hemoglobin makes the blood red, or makes the blood appear red. Now, when we talk about this hemoglobin, I'll just give you some interesting information about hemoglobin. This hemoglobin, do you know, as we are born, right? As we are born, even red blood cells are also have a birthplace. See, when I ask you where are you born, you say that I'm born in so and so hospital in so and so place, right? But these red blood cells are not born in any of the hospitals, but there is a special place in our body itself from where the red blood cells start producing or get produced, and the place is said to be bone marrow. I think most of the people who eat non-vegetarian, they know what is this bone marrow, right? So the bone have a soft fat substances, and that is said to be the marrow, right? So this bone marrow is the birthplace of the red blood cells. And you know, as we are living beings, as we are humans, as we are mortal, are we immortal? No, we are not immortal. We don't live forever, right? We die after a particular age, right? So in the same way, hemoglobin also, that is the red blood cells also die, as they are also living organisms, as they also perform activities like other parts of the body, they also die. Yes, isn't it interesting? Yes, they do die. They do die. And do you know which is, see, after we die, we have been taken to the graveyard and the final rites will be carried out, right? So there are no one to carry out final rites for papam red blood cells, but still they do die. And do you know what is the place where they do die? That is in the spleen. They die in the spleen, which is said to be the graveyard of blood cells, graveyard of RBC. So the birthplace is bone marrow and the graveyard of these RBCs is spleen. Now as I'm talking about birth and death, you might have a question in your mind, like how long this red blood cells can live? Is it 60 years? Is it 80 years? Or is it 100 years like humans? Or you can say like 40 years? See, some people die at the age of 40, some die at the age of 60, some die at the age of 70. Now you might have a question. You might have a question in your mind like, as we die, the blood cells die, right? Yes. See, I'll tell you what is the lifespan of these RBCs. The lifespan of RBC is 120 days. 120 days. That means one red blood cell will definitely die after 120 days, and before it dies, there is a new cell which is born out of bone marrow. So that is how the number of cells has been controlled in the body. So this is the information about your red blood cell. So the red, if at all, if anyone will ask you why is blood red in color, please answer that there is a pigment in our body called as hemoglobin, right? And this hemoglobin will help in making the blood red. And this hemoglobin plays a vital role in what? Carrying the digested food particles along with oxygen, So that is the reason the hemoglobin is said to be the most important component of red blood cells or blood. Now, next we'll see the next component of the blood. We'll see the next component of the blood, that is white blood cells. So as I've told you, the name itself indicates that they don't have any red pigment hemoglobin, right? So now what do white blood cells do? Now we have seen that red blood cells are important because they carry they transport the food and the oxygen to the different parts of the body. What do white blood cells do? See, generally when you take in food, different microorganisms enter into your body, say like bacteria, or when you play, or when you go out, suddenly you may be attacked by microorganisms. You may not know because they are microscopic, you cannot see with your eyes. So what does these white blood cells do? What do they have to do with the bacteria or microorganisms? Yes, you have a very good question in your mind, because these white blood cells which are present, they defend body by killing bacteria which enters into our body either through food, water, whatever. That means, you know, this white blood cells are given a tag called as the microscopic policeman of body, or you can, these are called as microscopic policemen of the body. Yes, they are microscopic. We cannot see blood cells, right? So as they are microscopic, they are called as microscopic policemen of the body or scavengers of the body. What do you mean by scavengers? The scavengers eat away dead parts which come in their way, right? So as bacteria enters into the body, it definitely gets like killed, or even if still it remains alive, it will eat away the bacteria which is entering into the body, and they protect our body from various diseases. That means they help in defense mechanism. So see, when you see people playing any of the game, you see sometimes when some people are good at defense, right? They try to defend while playing. So in the same way, this will play a defense mechanism in the body, protecting the body from various other attacks of bacteria or microorganisms. So these white blood cells, they kill the germs which enter into the body. Now, you also might have a question. Do white blood cells live for a long time? The span of white blood cells is only for 14 days. After 14 days, you see that the white blood cells die and a new blood cell is produced in its body. Now, let us learn about the next type of blood cell, that is platelets. The next type of blood cells are platelets. So when you talk about platelets, now what are these platelets? Do they have any plates do the blood has any kind of plates in its body? That is the reason it is said to be platelet? No. Before I start explaining about the platelet, let me give you a small example. Let me tell you something, right? You might have been traveling on road on a two-wheeler, and suddenly a passerby who is passing next to you might have met with an accident. And what do you observe when an accident takes place? You observe that the blood keeps flowing out of the body, right? And if it is a minor injury, you see that the blood continuously flows out for a while, and after some time, you see that the blood gets stopped, the flow gets stopped. What is the flow gets stopped? What is the reason? See, when you have a cut, a small cut on your hand or a finger or somewhere on your leg, you see that the blood only flows for a certain time. After that, it stops immediately. What happens? What happens to the blood? Will it disappear or will it get evaporated, or is something magic happening in your body? Is some magic happening in your body so that your blood gets stopped, or there is some control key which will stop the blood? No. These platelets which are present, they pop into the place where there is an injury and they plug in and form a network of cells. That means, see like if this is the injury, right? You see, I assume that this is an injury from which the blood is flowing. So immediately the blood platelets which are present, they pop to that place. See, as you see the pop-ups when you open your Google or YouTube, you see pop-ups coming out, right? In the same way, they pop up to the place where there is an injury and they form a network of cells. They form a network of cells which will make the blood clot in that particular place of hurt. That means the major function of the platelets is to clot the blood, Imagine if platelets are absent in your body, what would have been the condition? The whole blood which is present in your body would have come out within one single cut. Right? So the platelets which are present, they play a vital role by clotting the blood. If there is no clotting of blood happening in the body, many of the organisms would have died, because the blood would have flown out of the body and there would not have been any transport system to carry the digested food along with your oxygen. So this is all about the blood and its components. Yep. We have seen the different components of the blood. Right? In the beginning itself, I've told you that there are blood vessels which are thin tube-like structures which will help in pumping the blood into different parts of the body. We know that during inhalation, always there is a fresh supply of oxygen in the lungs. And we also know that the heart has to pump the blood to the lungs. The heart has to take the carbon dioxide rich blood should be pumped into the lungs so that they get oxygenated. Right? In the same way, the food particles should be diffused into the blood so that they can be carried to different parts of the body. Now, how does this happen? This happens through blood vessels, and there are different blood vessels present which based on the function. Right? There are different blood vessels which carry out various different functions in the blood. There are two blood vessels. Let us learn about those. Arteries, okay, arteries and veins. So when we talk about these arteries and veins, so I've told you that these blood vessels help in transportation of substances from heart to different parts of the body, say like every cell. So there should be some mediator or a carrier for that they carry it to the different places. See, the right thing should be carried by a right person. Do you agree? Right. In the same way, we know that there is a blood which is rich in oxygen, and we also know that there is a blood which is rich in carbon dioxide. So these should be properly channelized so that they don't meet up and end up in vein. Right. So these arteries which are present, they carry pure blood. Arteries carry pure blood. What do you mean by pure blood? They carry pure blood in the sense they carry oxygen-rich blood to all parts of the body. And you see that the arteries which are present, they carry pure blood. What do you mean by pure blood? Is that something like pure and impure? Yes, of course. Pure blood in the sense, in case of your body, that is in case of living organism which has blood, the pure blood means which is oxygen rich blood. So these arteries which are present, they are specified, or they are like organized, or they are instructed to carry only oxygen rich blood to different parts of the body. So we know that the heart pumps out the blood. So when the heart pumps out the blood, the oxygen rich blood which is present, it is pumped with a great pressure into the arteries. So that is the reason the mouth of the arteries has a larger diameter, and the walls of these arteries are thick. They are thick and elastic in nature. Why are the muscles which are present in the arteries are thick and elastic in nature? Why can't they be thin? Right? Didn't you get this doubt? Like, why can't they be thin and why should they be elastic in nature? I'll tell you why. Because when the blood is pumping out the blood into arteries, it flows into the arteries with a great pressure. To withstand the pressure of the blood which is pumped into the arteries, they have a wide opening Okay, the mouth of the arteries is wide, and at the same time the muscles are flexible so that they can easily pump the blood into the different parts of the body. And when you talk about veins, the veins which are present, they carry impure blood. What do you mean by impure blood? Is that something which is mixed with particles like soil or something? No. In case of this, impure blood means they carry carbon dioxide rich blood. Carbon dioxide rich blood. So, as what do this carbon dioxide rich blood is collected from different parts of the body. So, we know that there is carbon dioxide present in every part of the cell. So, different parts of the body. So, we know that every tissue has carbon dioxide present in it. So, what do veins do? They carry the carbon dioxide rich blood, is collected from different parts of the body and is taken to the lungs for you can say oxygenation. So the major function of the veins is to carry carbon dioxide rich blood. Now when you talk about this carbon dioxide rich blood, obviously there might be a pressure on veins also, because they have to drive the blood from the different parts of the tissues, right? But they don't need such thick muscles or such thick muscles as of arteries, because the mouth of the veins is so small that they can easily take in the carbon dioxide rich blood from different tissues, because there is no much pressure inside the tissues as of heart. So they don't need a big wide mouth opening so that they can take in the carbon dioxide rich blood. They have small openings, right? And they can take in the blood easily through the different parts of the body. Though the muscles are elastic, but still they don't have such big thick muscles which are present around the arteries. Now you have learnt what is the function of an artery and what is the function of a vein. Now if we have to know really, is that really the blood pumps out the blood with a great pressure? You can just do a small activity for a while and can understand that the blood pumps out the blood, the heart pumps out the blood into the arteries with a great pressure. Just take your left hand, lift your left hand, place your finger, one of your finger on the nerve. You can just sense it like this, and at certain point of your hand you feel there is a throbbing movement. Yes, and when you touch that part, you feel that there is something throbbing movement, and that is nothing but your pulse. So what is happening? You see that whenever the heart pumps out the blood, you see there is a great pressure which has been created on the pulse, which will give you a throbbing movement. And do you know, this is said to be the pulse rate. This is said to be pulse rate. Now what do you mean by pulse rate? When you put your index finger on your left wrist and check, there is a throbbing movement, and this throbbing movement is because of the pulse, due to which you can. So why is this pulse rate? This is due to the blood which is flowing into the arteries. Now how do you define this pulse rate? Number of beats per minute. So you can feel the throbbing beat on the left hand with your index finger. So the number of times the pulse beats, okay, per minute is said to be pulse rate. And as an average, the pulse rate is 72 to 80 times. A normal person pulse rate is always 72 to 80 times, and as discussed in previous classes, the pulse rate goes little high when you're doing some physical activities, or like running, jogging, or cycling, or jumping, and when you play, right? There might be a slight change in your pulse rate. So this is all about the number of this is about your pulse rate. Now we know that arteries and veins carry oxygen rich blood and carbon dioxide rich blood. Now between these arteries and veins, there is one more component called capillaries. These capillaries are thin tube-like structures which are present in between. You can say these arteries and veins. In between these arteries and veins, you have a structure called capillaries. Okay, and these capillaries are nothing but these are thin tube-like structures, which connect arteries and veins, right? And these thin tube-like structures, can you imagine the size of a capillary? If you take your hair strand and look at the thickness, do you think is your hair strand very thick? No. That means the thickness of the capillary is less than the thickness of your hair strand. That means they are very, 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 very thin. You can say they're very thin than your hair strand. So that would be the thickness of the capillary. So these capillaries which are present, they connect these arteries and veins. There are different capillaries, a network of capillaries. You can see there is a network of capillaries which connect these arteries and veins, so that they can help in the transportation of blood to different parts of the body. So what is the function of the capillary? The capillaries, they connect or they join these arteries and veins so that they can carry the blood to different parts of the body. So as discussed, the arteries carry oxygen rich blood and veins carry carbon dioxide rich blood. So these capillaries which are present, they join these two arteries and veins. Now when we are talking about arteries and veins, I have some interesting fact which you need to know, right? See, generally we know that arteries carry pure blood, but there is one artery in our human body which carries impure blood, okay, and that artery is said to be the pulmonary artery, carries impure blood. And we know that vein is specified, or the specification of vein is to carry impure blood, but there is one vein in our body which carries pure blood. Pulmonary vein carries pure blood. So the only artery which carries impure blood is pulmonary artery, and the only vein which carries pure blood is pulmonary vein. Why is this called as why is this vein is considered to be carrying the pure blood? Because this carries the blood from lungs to the heart, whereas this carries the blood from heart to the lungs. That's the reason, that is the difference why they are called as, why they are specified to carry impure blood and pure blood.